All right, good morning. My clock says 11, and that's what we usually start with. So, welcome back from the long weekend. I don't know if your book drops were overflowing or not, but usually that's you come in and that's what happened. I had a bazillion and five emails, and so I imagine that happened to you too. But we're back to the library world now. Some of you may already have started your summer reading program, and so you're already into chaos. If not, I bet it's starting soon. So, there's a couple of things that we want to work down through. I seriously thought about not having this meeting today until I got an email from Mala with some questions. And then I felt like, okay, we probably should at least discuss that. So anyway, starting at the top, I want to strongly encourage you to um, either call or email the the other Missouri Evergreen Consortium Library if you have the need to mark something claims returned, lost, damaged, if you're ready to bill for a missing piece. All of those are conversations that we need to be having with our partner library, whoever that material belongs to. Please do not go into somebody else's, onto somebody, a different patron's account and put a grocery bill. If you need to mark something damaged, call that library, have them mark it damaged. That will bill the patron, vice versa. If, the other way around, you might have to be the one receiving the call and marking something damaged, but let the system do its work. I would also strongly encourage you to put notes. We can annotate those transactions to where if I'm having, I'm just going to pick on somebody here. If I'm having Jen mark something, what my patron damaged their item, I can let her know what it is so she can annotate what is on there, because somewhere down the line, that piece of information may be helpful. Depending upon how expensive that item was, it may or may not block your patron. But let's say it's just a little skinny, easy reader book, so it's like $7. At Cass County, we could go a long time before that patron had to pay for that because our fine threshold is higher than that. And so 3 years from now, when my patron is ready to pay for this item, it's helpful to be able to say the corner of the book was chewed or liquid damage or something like that. It doesn't have to be a big, long thing, but if you could just annotate what's wrong with it, that would be helpful. Questions on that? Okay.
I have one kind of, it's not really a question about if one of my patrons damages a book. It's a little bit more, we have a lot of older books in our collection, and we hang on to them even if they're damaged because we frankly can't afford to replace all of these books. And if I have to choose between keeping a slightly damaged book, maybe it's got some stains on the pages, and keeping a patron, because sometimes they just won't show back up if they think we're going to charge them a bill, we often will keep these damaged books. Now, sometimes we just don't eat because we're so used to seeing a lot of less than pristine books. We might not put like a condition report on them when we send them out. And I know sometimes other libraries will, like they'll oh, there was a stain on page 237. We're like, oh, of course there's a stain. Of course there's a stain. We're not going to get rid of the book for that because our budget doesn't allow us to be too persnickety about stuff like that. Should we attempt to put notes in Evergreen so that when it's checked in, kind of like, I've seen that other libraries do that. We check it in and it'll say, oh, there's water damage on page so-and-so. And then we know that the other library knows. Is that something that we should all be trying to do? It's like a check-in alert, I think is what it is.
Right. It would be setting like, for example, when you check in your DVDs and it says, please check for 2 discs.
Mhm.
So it would be the same type of situation as that. I certainly don't, this is just my opinion, committee, weigh in here. I don't see anything wrong with doing it. On the other hand, not all of your frontline staff are going to, you're going to have to do training if you're kind of getting into cataloging-ish issues when you're doing that. So what does everybody think?
The MLC libraries, I mean, we're not 100% consistent in it, but we often do make condition notes, and sometimes they're check-in and check-out notes because patrons, when checking out, like to be reassured that we're already aware that this item has an issue. So sometimes we have added them for those reasons. I know that there's ways to add notes so they don't create a pop-up every time, but of course the pop-up creates a little bit of slowness when we're talking about RFID. So there is a trade-off there, but I love the idea of libraries making notes on their own items, even if they are not even alerts, but just somewhere in the item record to say we're already aware. Then we don't have to have the pieces of paper floating around for years, a piece of paper attached to an item, because the longevity of that is not high.
We've also just marked it on like the white front page that there's a problem, and then we initial it and date it. So that works as well.
Right. I like the idea of the notes, and we're looking into starting to do that at our location as well. And I think it may also help, since some items travel so often before they come back home, that if there is an alert, it takes away some of the question on, okay, was it at this library 2 patrons back, or was it the most recent one? And if there's a note with a date, you can trace that better.
So the caveat would be you're only doing this for your own items. You're not putting any kind of thing on anybody else's item. And before you do it, you need to make sure that you know how to do it so that it's done correctly. I do have a short, like a little flyer of how to add alerts. There's multiple different ways. Your catalogers might do it one way. As in Evergreen, there's more than one way to do almost everything. So I could attach or send that out at the end of the meeting for those of you who are interested in that. Let me make a note or I'll forget. You would think you could be able to remember something for half an hour, but I have learned the hard way. All right. Anything else before we move on? Okay, I want to share, let's see here. This document. Oh no, that's not the one I want to share yet. Hold on. This one. Okay, so in the last week, I'm bringing this before you because in the last 2 weeks, Cass County has had to mark something missing pieces that actually belonged to somebody else. And so when we do that, at least at Cass County, we give our patrons a month to get that item brought back to us before we would be calling you to find out how much we need to bill for this item. So currently, marking, like this says, marking an item as missing pieces checks it back out to the last patron and changes the status of the item to damaged. The problem is the item is not really damaged. When you mark it damaged, it doesn't bill the patron like it would traditionally. It doesn't even give you the option to bill them. It checks it out again to the last person. And so I have had frontline staff calling me saying, why is this item damaged? There's no bill for it. We don't have it on our problem shelf. What do I do with this item? So Diane Disbrow, many of you remember her, appealed to Equinox back in the day to create a new item status. And so you can change your library settings from damaged to missing pieces to where it actually shows that is the status of the item. So these are the steps that you would go through to do that. And I am just encouraging all libraries to go ahead and implement that new item status because it reduces confusion for frontline staff. That being said, you do not have to do this. The default is going to stay as damaged. But when you do it, when you mark items belonging to your library, they're going to come up as missing pieces. Depending upon what you all do today, now that you've heard this, you may or may not have things coming up as damaged. Are there questions about how you would go about changing this setting to show missing pieces? It's pretty easy. All right. If there's no further questions on that, I just want to be moving on to number 3. We have now the official finalized checking the transit document because I personally left out a section that should have been included in the document that went out last month. So it's really on me. I didn't catch it. And so we've gone back and we've added it in. So let me share the right one now. So almost everything is the same. We've added one little section, and that is number 3. Because items that are coming to your branch are either going to be coming back to just be put back on your shelf or they're on hold for somebody. So the system thinks it's in transit. This hold is not going to be moved to hopeless holds because it thinks it has a target already selected. So we should, for good patron care, go in and place a replacement hold for that item. Or if it's not, if that was the only one, offer perhaps to do interlibrary loan where it's coming in from outside of the consortium, or is this something that might fit your collection development that you think people would continue to check out? Would this be something to purchase? But at least to let your patron know if you're not going to be able to get this item. So we've added just the instructions on how to do that, and it's just this little section right here. After this meeting and after I make the notes, the meeting minutes, I will send this to Ron and it will be posted this time. I promise. So hopefully it's really all on me. I just missed that section. And so I wanted to go back and make sure that we had the corrected information for everybody. So questions on that? Okay. All right, I'm just full of sharing today. So here's this one shows the first part of the materials handling best practices document. I received an email from Mala this week because they have all of a sudden received a slew of questions on what is to be counted in the report that we sent into them each month. And so they were wondering, is there ambiguity somewhere between what they're saying and what we're saying? Or do we need to change what we say? So committee especially, but everybody can chime in. Is there a need to add something or change wording or something to make it clearer that everything that goes out of your building through the courier is counted in those statistics that you turn in at the end of the month?
I'm not sure how it could be clearer. It says count each and every item that leaves your library, whether it is borrowed, loaned, misdelivered, reciprocal return. I mean, I feel like that covers, it literally says count everything. So I'm not, maybe there's a way to make it more clear, but I can't think of it offhand.
I was also trying to figure out how to diplomatically say the same thing. It
Good.
pretty much says it right there.
I was looking at it and I'm going, I'm not sure what I would add to this, but because there was a significantly increased, I guess, number of people calling in to find out what they really want on their reports, they wanted us to just take a look at it and see if we were happy with it. I don't think they necessarily are unhappy. I think they're just unsure why there's any question. So would you say we're good with leaving it as it is?
I think unless someone can specifically point to what's ambiguous, probably we just want to leave it the way it is for now.
Would it make it clearer if we said something about each individually barcoded item? Because like if you're transiting a STEM kit, we are not, I'm assuming, meaning counting every item in that STEM kit.
No.
But not every item that you're sending through the courier will be barcoded. You know, sometimes if one library is giving books to another library, those won't be barcoded until they get to the receiving library, but they still count as items that are moving.
Right. So, I mean, I would do, like, sometimes I've seen people sharing, we've got these extra audio video cases we don't need anymore. Does anybody else want them? I don't think they're counting. I mean, if you put them in a bag or in a container, I don't know that they're down to every single thing inside like that, but it makes it sound like they really want a count of every single thing that goes. But it's even those things that we're sharing back and forth between, we've got too many of them. Would anybody else have a use for them? Those should be counted too. I think, Regina, I get what you're saying because, yeah, like on a STEM kit, you're not going to go in there and check every little piece that is in the STEM kit or it's going to be a STEM kit.
Right. And book club kits are the same way.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it's good that you got questions because it means that someone read through it and called into question
Well,
the way that
awesome.
they were doing it. So maybe we're just sort of catching the folks who weren't aware. And I think it's a little bit of a how do I want to say? It's like a not a disconnect, but counting for MALA is different than the stats you'll want to keep for your own library about how many of your items you have sent into transit for other MEC libraries. And so maybe that's the issue, is that some folks are used to thinking of those two numbers as the same, and they're not the same.
Yes. That's a good point. Okay, so I think what we're hearing is that we're going to leave it as is and let this just be a reminder that everything going out of your building is to be counted. All right. Right. The last thing that I had on my list anyway was circulation committee attendance. So at the beginning of every meeting, you will hear me say, please sign in with your name and library. That is what gives your library credit for attending a meeting. So the MEC circulation policy states that each member library is required to be represented at a minimum of 4 meetings each year. So the circulation committee is required to have 10. Usually, I would say for the past several years, we've had 11, averaged 11, because that December meeting falls right before Christmas. And it's just, everybody's got Christmas brain on then. So you have a good, 10 to 11 chances to attend this meeting. The other option would be to view the YouTube video, read the minutes, shoot me an email that says, okay, you talked about, I learned this, or I heard you talk about this, at least one takeaway from the meeting. Send an email to me with your name and library, and I will give your library credit. So the reason that I'm just bringing this up, and probably I'm preaching to the choir here, most likely, most likely, but currently there are 8 libraries out of the consortium that are non-compliant, and an additional 6 libraries that are non-compliant, but they have not reached their anniversary date, so they haven't been in a whole year, so they're not really on the non-compliant list, but as they get closer to their anniversary date, they run the risk of that. So we have discussed it a little bit with the executive committee, with the executive board, and the reminders that I have sent has not necessarily helped bring these other libraries on. So if you are on this call, please make sure that your name and library is on there, because I want to give you credit if you're here. And it will probably, after this month, be sent to the executive committee for follow-up, from the next step up the line. So encourage library directors or library staff that to attend or to go back and watch those YouTube videos and shoot me an email. I don't want to get anybody in trouble. I really don't want to have to send anybody's name up the list. So questions on that?
I have a quick question, and I probably
Sure.
should know this, but what is the consequence of not attending at least the 4 meetings?
I believe the first consequence is that you're going to get a call either from the president or the executive director of Missouri Evergreen, encouraging you to begin attending and taking part. I think that would be most likely the first step. However, and it is possible that if even after repetitive things, it could eventually lead to you, I don't want to say kicked out. I mean, but you're not in good standing um, with the consortium, and so it would fall to the executive board to decide what the consequences then would be. And yes, I do have a spreadsheet of not just libraries, how many people from each library have attended, so that and that's why it's so important for you to go ahead and sign up. Okay, any other questions on that? All right, so the very last thing is just your reminder about the courier labels. Make sure you're using the right ones, the correct ones. There haven't been any changes from last month. Now I'm going to knock on wood. Probably I'll go look at it tomorrow and something will have changed. But periodically check those old labels. Make sure you've thrown away the old, out with the old, in with the new. Is there anything that anybody on this call would like to bring before the Circulation Committee?
I have one quick question,
Sure.
and it's concerning Mela. I'd like to change our courier days. Still do two, but instead of Tuesdays and Thursdays to Wednesdays and Fridays. Is that anything I need to run through anybody at the consortium, or do I just do that directly with Mela? Is that fine?
I would just go right to them because they're going to be the one coordinating the courier.
Yeah.
Or working with Henry to do the.
Yeah. I just want to make sure I wasn't, causing any problems. Good.
Okay. If you do not know how, okay, I've got it in the chat. It was saying, can we find out our status? Yes, I don't want to say it over this call, though. So if you don't know what your status is as far as attendance and you want to know, shoot me an email and I will respond so that you know kind of where you are. And it's not on a calendar year basis, it's on a rolling year basis. So, we're in May. So from May last year to May this year, that rolling year type of thing. But I would be more than happy to send you where your library is. Okay. Anything else?
This is a little bit of a loosey-goosey question, but one of my directors asked me, and I wasn't sure, what percentage of the MEC libraries still charge overdue fines? And I realized, I'm not sure outside of my own MLC library. So I was curious, I was hoping people would just chime in and chat and say if your library charges no fines or overdue fines or fines on only some things, just for a really casual poll, just for my own information. Thanks, everyone.
Heather, at Scenic, we do $5 overdue fines for some of our non-traditional items. So like telescopes and stuff, just because we want that stuff back. And then everything else we don't have overdue fines for. We just charge for lost and damaged.
That's pretty similar to how many of the MLC libraries do it as well.
Right.
Oh, so many responses. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it.
Okay, I'm going to give a minute to just let anybody else who wants to put in responses for Heather there. I don't want to close down this this call too quickly. Is there anything else that people would like to discuss? Okay, well, it's a short meeting. We can get on to our day. I'm gonna leave this. I still see some chat coming in, so I'm gonna leave this open for just another minute or two, but you all are free to go on and enjoy the rest of your day, or else plow through the rest of your day, depending upon what you might have on your schedule. So anyway, have a wonderful day.